weapons, never carrying a gun. But this is the truth, Doctor. You take ordinary people and you fashion them into weapons. Behold your children of time transformed into murderers. I made the Daleks, Doctor. You made this.
So the last time I was rewatching Stolen Earth, I had to pause for a second because of how much that line stuck out to me. Because of how true it really is. Most companions are fresh-faced, young people, corrupted and traumatized intergalactic soldiers who do the Doctor's or someone else's bidding with more violence than he used. So I used this quote as a major jumping-off point and asked a larger question in the scope of Davros' statement. What is the feminine resilience of Doctor Who? How does it spread, and how does it affect our favorite characters? Let's start with 2 disclaimers. Firstly, it's probably a surprise that when talking about feminine resilience, I'm not talking about Jodie Whittaker, the first female Doctor, but I really cannot bring myself to watch it for this video, especially because there are so many great takes on her era from people more well-versed than me, some of which are in my playlist in the description. Instead, we're going to focus on female companions, and a little bit on female supporting characters and guest appearances. And lastly, I'm going to be super critical of the Doctor here. A lot of good is being pieced away to uncover this stuff, so don't think I enjoy ranking on the Doctor, it just kinda has to be done here. So, what is resilience? Resilience, or resiliency, is the ability to survive and thrive from stressful experiences while building up protective skills to manage future hardship. Psychological resilience involves cognitive, emotional, social, and physical skills. Some of the main behaviors that come from practicing resilience are flexibility and adaptability, ways to let out stress, achieving whatever success means to you, having someone to model success and validate you to continue, disclosing trauma to someone trusted, using positive stress to come out the other end, and an understanding of your current situation and how long it'll change. All of this creates a positive outlook and coping skills that will solidify into long-term healing and resilience for the present and the future. But obviously, resilience doesn't always work this way. It doesn't always work in our favor, and sometimes it just doesn't work. There are always pros and cons and hurt without malicious intent, and these 3 companions best showcase how resilience can make and break us. Martha, River, and Clara. We're going to take a look through their arcs and how resilience plays a part in it. The good, the bad, and how sometimes the negative portrayals of resilience can feel just as real as healthy or good representation.
I spent a lot of time with you thinking I was second best, but you know what? I am good.
I want to start with NuWho's underdog, Dr. Martha Jones. We see her transform from sassy med student to unrequited lover to unit badass and companion to the previous TARDIS underdog, Mickey Smith. It's obvious from the get-go how capable and resilient Martha is, but what's also obvious is how the Doctor uses that resilience against her. The Doctor always uses the fact that Martha is a doctor as a reason to force resilience on her, as if she doesn't need to be cared for because she cares for others. He's constantly leaving her to fend for herself.
I'm sorry, Martha, but you've got to fight. Because it all depends on you.
What does? What am I supposed to do?
Take this watch, because my life depends on it. You're this doctor's companion, can't you help? What exactly do you do for him? Why does he need you?
We're stuck. All of space and time he promised me. Now I've got a job in a shop. I've got to support him.
And she always succeeds with flying colors, but that longing to be more than a foot soldier is always there, and not just romantically. The 2 of them never feel like partners like Ten and Donna or Ten and Rose. Rather, Martha feels like the B-plot gruntwork companion that Ten gets the credit for. Does Martha's intelligence scare the Doctor? What is it about her that's so distressing versus other intelligent companions that give him a run for his money? It's like he forces resilience, but he doesn't like autonomy and independence. Martha and River are capable, talented, smart, accomplished women, and his favorites are Rose and Amy, a 19-year-old shop worker and a kissogram. It's like he needs to be taken care of emotionally, but has to take care intellectually. Doctor Who spends a lot of time mulling over the Doctor's trauma, but the companions rarely get that same courtesy. Everyone was incredibly racist to you, including the fucking Doctor himself for a month, and you just saved him? Oops, no mention, never mind. You were literally forced to have a child locked away for 9 months in an alien war base and had your child taken away from you minutes after giving birth to her, and she's also River Song? Okay, whatever, who gives a shit? Even in the episodes that contain new stuff about that plotline, just go and have some fun. Have a whole ass family and life after undergoing a traumatic whatever the fuck this is in the TARDIS just to find out nothing's real? We'll talk about it for a sec, but he's gotta snap open the TARDIS. And the list goes on and on and on. But that's not resiliency. That's ignorance and repression. I'm not gonna talk like Doctor Who is a fucking masterclass in humanistic nuance, but it's obvious to both the characters and the viewer the Doctor forces resilience on his companions because he doesn't want to deal with it. He has a companion to be taken care of, not to take care.
You gotta promise me you're gonna take care of her.
She takes care of me.
As much as he wishes that wasn't the case. I mean, look at him when he's alone. Waters of Mars, the snowmen.
See, this is what happens when you travel alone for too long.
Most of his darkest moments are when a companion doesn't keep him in shape. But those companions don't have anyone to keep them in shape but themselves and each other. It's a frequent topic of conversation between different companions when first meeting each other, that you have to be happy and strong for the Doctor and have to be there when he's not. And sometimes the Doctor is there for his companions, but when is he like that with Martha besides a hug or a thanks or a pat on the back? He's always spouting off some bullshit about Rose.
Rose had known.
For resilience to stick, the truth is, you can't do it on your own. You need a support system who will listen to you, hold you accountable, and aid in creating new positive memories. All the other companions, Rose, Donna, Amy, and Rory, have family and friends who love and support them, and that the Doctor is a fan of. But the Doctor never connects with Martha's family. It's obviously in part to the fact that the Master is breathing down their necks the whole time. But either way, neither side makes much of an effort to understand and enjoy each other's company. Even though they're in more episodes than people like Rory's dad or Pete Tyler, who instantly made a strong impression. What if Tish had taken a couple spins in the TARDIS? What if the Doctor had to sit down with her mother like he did for Jackie and Donna's family? Rose had Mickey, Amy and Rory had Mel's, but Martha doesn't seem to have any outlets socially or otherwise until she and Mickey get married way down the line. But the person who should be giving Martha the most support might be who's causing so many problems in the first place, as the Doctor is barely a friend or a support, platonically or romantically. In The Last of the Time Lords, the Doctor says,
Now I've got someone to care for.
About the fucking Master, while Martha's right in front of him. There are so many instances where Martha connects with people over the fact that the Doctor overlooks her and cares about Rose. It's just sad. We see it when Tallulah talks about how nice Laszlo is, how Chanto is always overlooked by Professor Yana, how everyone thinks they're a couple until Martha quietly has to protest. And so, Martha looks for that forced resilience elsewhere, especially after her experiences during the year that never was. She joins UNIT. She's learned how to go through the motions. Danger is her normal, as is being alone and making the hard choices no one else can make. It's interesting that her title of Doctor is used in such a militaristic place, and how much her arc as an almost soldier can match Danny's from time to time. But it's not as dire as it seems, as Martha says to the Doctor.
It's all right for you. You can just come and go, but some of us have got to stay behind. So I've got to work from the inside, and by staying inside, maybe I stand a chance of making them better.
Her utilization of the system from within shows an awareness and a positive outlook for her future. Her work at UNIT shows she's been hurt, but that she's made something good from it, and at the same time shows she'll never be able to let go of her time in the TARDIS. Even though she's on Earth, she's a doctor working with aliens and has a fiance.
Got a doctor who disappears off to distant places. Tell me about it.
And even Mickey is related to the Doctor, like how River is intrinsically connected to him too. It's always there. But I miss the most fundamental aspect of Martha's arc. When things get to be too much, what skill of resilience does she practice? She leaves.
'Cause he never looked at her twice. I mean, he liked her. That was it. And she wasted years pining after him, years of her life. 'Cause while he was around, she never looked at anyone else. And I told her, I always said to her time and time again, I said, get out. So this is me, getting out.
Martha knows her limits by working on her own so often. She's gotten to understand her self-worth despite the Doctor, needing to be on Earth, but better for having gone. And this continues into her guest appearances in Season 4. Like she says,
I am good.
in her finale, but we only really see it put in practice now. Martha has internalized and healed. Her fight for survival is no longer from weakness, but because she finds worth in herself, her life, and her beliefs. Accepting she couldn't travel anymore saved her life. What upsets me about Martha's arc is that she is a model of resilience as a person, but the show doesn't allow her that as a character. All this work and self-acceptance, and she's still the B-plot gruntwork girl, left alone for the story to save the day, be traumatized by it, and get a 2-second hug from the doctor before they wrap it up. Especially because Ten actually starts to understand, despite the initial manipulative puppy eyes he gives her before she leaves.
I had this friend Martha, she was called. Martha Jones, she was brilliant. And I destroyed half her life.
The last time, with Martha, like I said, it got complicated. And that was all my fault.
He knows what he did was wrong, but he just keeps doing it. Martha's new alien friend dies and no one says shit, but the doctor gets to rant and rave about Jenny infinitely. He holds Martha for like 3 seconds before dashing off again in Poison Sky, and the speech he gives Donna after knowing her for only a few episodes is infinitely nicer than anything he's ever said to Martha. And not only does her character not deserve that, but we as fans don't deserve that either. I think one of the reasons Martha's story got so bad is a problem that's plagued Doctor Who for forever. The lack of female writers on the show, and thus a lack of female insight in the writer's room to give more credence to a well-rounded image of someone like Martha. Since Doctor Who was rebooted back in 2005, only 8 episodes out of 134 carry a writer's credit from a woman. In fact, only 4 female writers have worked on the series: Rona Munro, Catherine Trenegan, Helen Rayner, and Sarah Dollard. Is that, then, why her character herself feels healed, but the show around her doesn't? So how does Stephen Moffat, notorious for his sometimes interesting depictions of women, deal with this issue in his season?
Can I trust you with a song?
If you like. But where's the fun in that?
River has led a full life of fighting for survival, down to its most basic aspects. And because of that, she's built up her resourcefulness and hypervigilance.
She forced her way out. She must be incredibly strong.
That resourcefulness on its face is great. She's adaptable and accepting of constant change and has a variety of skills to get her through the toughest of situations. But at the same time, resilient doesn't always mean good or healed. So while she's learned, she's not always right in doing so, like a bone that healed wrong without a cast to keep it in place.
Good, aren't I? Please.
Not sure good's the word.
The murder of a creature like that wouldn't weigh very heavily on my conscience, even if I had one.
You're all one.
The doctor lies.
So do I. All the time. Have to.
And this is true of her general demeanor, too. What are those quips and flexes and honeypot shenanigans hiding? Could they be a mask of a shell of a person with no sense of identity but her own trauma? River's resilience isn't purely for survival, but it's resilience as survival. Just think about how violent her gestation, birth, and first moments were, even unrelated to her childhood. Her only infant bonding with her mother is a few hours in the middle of a battlefield, and she's literally a fucking flesh avatar, so that's gotta be traumatic for anybody, but worse for a little teeny tiny person. So her shell is hard and cold and strategically built. She's a super soldier, born and bred, and can turn on any kind of mask or persona or skill set to get herself out of a tough situation. And those tough situations include ones where she's forced to be emotionally vulnerable, until she gets more sly to repress her real anger or sadness. Like here when she kills the Dalek after it kills 11.
Would kill you stone dead.
Records indicate you will show mercy. You are an associate of the Doctor's.
I'm River, so check your records again.
Mercy.
Say it again.
Mercy.
One more time.
Mercy.
Or as she decides not to shoot him at Lake Silencio. It's obvious that these masks are survival techniques that she's learned under the supervision of her abuser and honed on her own. And when she's backed into a corner, her most violent tendencies are utilized to protect herself. She's willing to risk it all because she's had nothing. But what's under them? What's River like when she's alone? Who is she when she's just with the TARDIS? When she's alone in prison? She's quiet, inquisitive to the point, and careful of herself while being dangerous. But what if this boisterous, balls to the wall, ravenous side to her really is her identity? Not only is there always truth to a mask, but I haven't really expanded on how much she loves to be a femme fatale and a dastardly intergalactic rebel. She hangs out at the psychopath party spot, breaks out of her prison for fun, and goes to Nazi Germany just for the chaos of it all. The games River plays are her language. It's the way she was brought up to communicate, and she does it very skillfully. I kind of feel like she's found a balance with risk and danger by doing it in her positive way. While her shenanigans get her and others in serious danger, at the same time, they can save others and afford her some of the most interesting and rewarding experiences of her life. If River's anything, it's capable. In this case, the pros of being exceptional is that becomes normal. Still though, River's character is complex and confusing, and that's not just true in-universe. I think her character arc unraveling was a bit of a breaking point for Moffat skeptics. But for me, the more egregious pattern Moffat falls into with River is allowing her to be a trope rather than a person. Although it technically isn't the first time we see her, when River is reintroduced in The Time of Angels, we see her strutting high heels and sleek little gun before we ever see her face or hear her speak. These self-aggrandizing symbols of sex and violence. Obviously, the shot is for shock value and tension, but it also shows me that Moffat sees her as more of a pair of heels and a gun than a face. So I have to ask, how much of River's personality or identity even is her own, and how much of it is a product of bad, jumbled writing with depth only for the sake of plot? Because of course, if her one true purpose as a character is to be the Doctor's wife, then why would she need a personality beyond him? She's embedded in the Doctor's life, like Moffat's major inspiration for her character, the time traveler's wife. Every facet of herself is connected to him, and most of the time in ways she can't convey.
You know what they say? There's a first time for everything.
And a last time. When I first met the Doctor, a long time ago, he knew all about me. Impressionable young girl, and suddenly this man just drops out of the sky, and he's clever and mad and wonderful and knows every last thing about her. Imagine what that does to a girl.
His story takes priority over her sense of identity throughout their relationship. Even from the first time we as an audience see her, she gets the Doctor to trust him by telling him his name. She can be trusted because she's connected to him, not because of her previous skills, her charm, or her intelligence, and it's the same throughout the rest of those 2 episodes. Apart from the fact that each stage of her life is caught up in some torrid relation to the Doctor, the negative implications of their relationship don't stop there. He's straight up abusive to her in Angels Take Manhattan and Flesh and Stone.
I know that face. Calm down. Calm down! No! Talk to me, Doctor!
No! You get your wrist out without breaking it.
How?
I don't know, just do it! Change the future!
What? What did you say? Time's running out. Is that what you said?
Yeah, I just meant...
Well, I know what you meant. Hush.
River, you know, why do you have to be this? Melody Pond, your daughter, I hope you're both proud.
It's never gonna work.
What else have you got? River, tell me!
River, this is ridiculous. That would mean nothing to anyone. It's insane. Worse, it's stupid. You embarrass me.
But no, she has to take care of him after her parents die.
Don't travel alone.
Very Martha moment, if you ask me. And in this episode, we hear her say her saddest line. One that sums up not only their relationship with one another, but River's identity as a whole.
Never let him see the damage. And never, ever let him see you age.
Never notices the tears.
While River and Eleven bring out the best in each other more than Ten and Martha, we see the Doctor at his worst with them. Sometimes River's resilience feels owned and empowered, and other times River feels like she's barely keeping it together. Despite how self-centered she comes off initially hearing her talk to Amy and the Doctor, it's obvious how much she does to stay available in all facets for him and her parents. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but when it's done unwillingly or tiresomely, that shows the toxicity of their relationship.
where he is right now, but I promise you, he's doing whatever the hell he wants and not giving a damn about me! And I'm just fine with that! When you love the Doctor, it's like loving the stars themselves. You don't expect a sunset to admire you back. And if I happen to find myself in danger, let me tell you, the Doctor is not stupid enough or sentimental enough, and he is certainly not in love enough to find himself standing in it with me!
So here's my biggest problem with River as a character. Is she a person, or is she Moffat's ploy? Like the time traveler's wife, is her only purpose to be the Doctor's confidant? And if she's not, why does the show spend so much time treating her as nothing more than that? Like how Amy and many other people's first reactions to her are this.
Is River Song your wife?
It's always centered on him. It's funny and kind of ironic how the most traumatized of these companions also has the most support, both in quantity and in quality, just not when or how she really needed it. I think because of that lack of a bond as a child, she's become very adept at knowing who she wants to be around and when she can make it happen, professionally, romantically, criminally. Even though her parents weren't there for her in a parental capacity until much later, she got to grow up with them and they took care of each other, a bond that's more intimate than one any of us could have with our parents.
It took me years to find you two. I'm so glad I did. And you see? It all worked out in the end, didn't it? You got to raise me after all.
And, although the Doctor has enmeshed himself in various family groups as we've previously discussed, he hasn't been genuine family to a group of companions since Susan. But Eleven, Amy, Rory, and River are literally a family unit in every sense of the word. And Amy and River specifically quickly and heavily reconcile when she tells them the truth. Thus, River's support goes even further, that she doesn't just have someone to talk to and help her through things, but someone that deeply understands the extraordinary experiences she's had and wants to make a positive difference in her life. So while I'd assume River spends a lot of time with others just to not be alone, she has strength in the love that comes from her family. Despite the unceremonious removal of her parents from the show, River's final moments with Amy are so touching, and they show a woman who believes in love and family, but can be strong despite and without them. Whether or not she'll see them again, she's internalized their love. We see her truly grow and come to terms with her support system and her place in it during Let's Kill Hitler, flying the TARDIS in to save Amy and Rory and sacrificing her regeneration energy for the Doctor. Initially, when I started working on River's section, I was going to use this as an example of her giving into Eleven's control. But the more I've thought about her, I've realized its strength despite herself. The opposite of the River only matters to the Doctor reading, because that's all her. Her strength to make the truly good decision in that moment, to take that risk, with her family at her side. That's who she really is, and her truest, deepest layer of resilience.
Feel like a bloody idiot.
Language.
Oh, don't you ever tell me to mind my language. Don't you ever tell me to take the stabilizers off my back, and don't you dare lump me in with the rest of all the little humans that you think are so tiny and silly and predictable. You walk our earth, Doctor. You breathe our air. You make us your friend, then that is your moon too, and you can damn well help us when we need it.
I was helping.
What, by clearing off?
Yes.
Yeah, well, clear off.
Clara. I have complicated feelings about Clara. As we all should. She's so fascinating because she is, at this point, the most fleshed out, complicated, and realistic companion and maybe character the show has ever had, with her relationship with the Doctor being the same. And she started out as a vacant plot device during the worst season of NuWho that I also really love for cringe nostalgia's sake. And she basically ended as a vacant plot device too. How Moffat continues to both simultaneously write the most clever and the most stupid arcs of the show is beyond, and Clara is exactly that. But fundamentally, I think she's an incredibly developed character as time goes on, and so obviously we'll focus more on Clara in seasons 8 and 9 than 7. I'm only talking about Clara, not Victorian Clara, or Oswin, or this Clara that's watching 5 and whatever the fuck this is, because I have not watched enough Classic Who to understand. Clara is such an interesting and exceptional companion when it comes to the power dynamics between her and the Doctor, specifically when it comes to saying no to him. The culminating symbol of Martha's arc was to say no. It's unpredictable whether or not River will say no, but it's a common occurrence for Clara to take the reins in their relationship and advocate for herself, to her and the Doctor's detriment sometimes. Clara is a woman that knows what she wants, and she trusts herself enough to make it happen. That resilience cannot be discounted, especially when it comes to looking at those that came before her. She doesn't even accept the Doctor's offer to stay in the TARDIS at first. When the Doctor calls her the boss in the Crimson Horror, it's a whole thing.
You're the boss.
Am I?
I am the boss.
And she's used to using the TARDIS and the Doctor for her own purposes. The Danny date, the turkey. I feel like we rarely see a companion that's made themselves this comfortable. I mean, who is more bossy towards him, besides maybe Donna? But again, the dynamics are different. First off, it's just funnier when Donna's bossy, both because Catherine Tate breathing is a stroke of comedic genius, and because the scripts play it up for laughs. But also because there's a sense that 10 is in control, almost like he's letting her do it for her own good. He could shut it down if he really tried, but he enjoys her too much to do so. But 12 literally just can't fucking stop Clara. She's a force to be reckoned with. Clara also seems to enjoy being in the TARDIS the most during the fact. I see that genuine enjoyment in her more than people like Amy, Donna, or Rose through the daily ins and outs of traveling. No one makes as many comments about how much they love it, how excited they are as Clara, who also spends a great deal of time reminiscing about past adventures, on-screen and off-screen. Although River does a lot of that too, but it's more for plots and gag's sake. Whereas companions like Amy and Donna do a lot of complaining, and the show loves to make a punchline of their prissy antics taken overboard. One of the Doctor's strengths in his relationships is being able to show people their worth when they can't see it themselves. Rose, Amy, Donna, but what can he do for people who already know it? I think he's intimidated by that, not being able to follow that good guy formula anymore. And Martha, River, and Clara all are companions that are inherently confident in themselves from the start. So for Martha and River, it's making them feel small. And for Clara, it's unwittingly teaching her all the wrong things. One of the ways we see 12 building a negative brand of resilience in Clara is how his manipulative actions rub off on her. And we'll touch more on Clara becoming the Doctor in a bit, but I want to focus in on one interpersonal relationship first. Danny. I don't think we see a companion actively hurt someone they love as much as Clara hurts Danny, and that needs to be touched upon to understand how her brand of resilience works. Because he is her support. We don't see any other friends. She, again, like Martha, doesn't have hobbies or other things outside of work and the TARDIS, and her family is so badly touched upon after her trauma with her mom, the actor playing her father looks completely different and it just doesn't seem to matter. Anyways, that is to say, Danny is the only major support that Clara has outside the TARDIS, and he steps up to the plate, but she doesn't. We've seen this happen before in 9, 10, and 11's TARDIS teams with Mickey and Rory, and how the Doctor's preference of companion forges a wedge in their relationships with the women they thought they knew.
No, well, that's the thing, isn't it? You can rely on me. I don't go changing my face.
And aside from the whole, I almost made you kill me as a Cyberman, he didn't come back to life, plot stuff with him, the worst thing that Clara does to Danny is lie. It's something that comes easy from her at the start, but throughout Season 8, Clara begins to usurp the Doctor's lying talent, first unwillingly, but more so as time goes on. We see in The Caretaker, Clara uses the exact same manipulation tactics on Danny the Doctor used on her, but this time she takes the Doctor's role.
I'm sorry, I've got to do a thing. It might take a while.
What thing?
Just a thing.
The space helmet one time?
Sorry, I've had a thing, and the thing's gone, so I'm all yours.
What thing? What's gone?
Nothing.
It's like trying to be mysterious.
School, parents, you were just on the phone.
Oh yeah, rang school and parents, yes, of course. Thought that was a priority.
And?
And I couldn't get through. Left messages, I'll try again.
Oh, you didn't call the school, you called him.
Similar to someone like River, Clara has built up a reservoir of defense strategies, but even more than River, who was used for so much of her life she barely knows who she really is. Clara is aware of this pattern of behavior and allows her and the Doctor to both play into it. And Danny sees this from the start, how not only the Doctor's negative actions are rubbing off on her, but that she, as a human, isn't capable of holding them up like him. He calls him the Sergeant after his time in the war, and after witnessing Clara and the Doctor fighting an alien, he says,
"You weren't even scared. And you should have been."
I've alluded to it already, but Clara's arc of resilience is resilience as corruption. The longer she's in the TARDIS, the more she strives to be like the Doctor, usurping his worst elements to feel cleverer and better than the human race she's in. Her behavior in Face the Raven reminds me a lot of Rose in her last episode. That they were too good to stay because they can keep up, and not even as a doctor, ego, intellectual care thing, but because it was stripping them of who they were and who they're supposed to be.
I'll just keep on travelling, and you'll keep on changing. And in 40 years' time, 50, there'll be this woman, this strange woman, walking through the marketplace, on some planet a billion miles from Earth. She's not Rose Tyler. Not anymore. She's not even human.
Hearing Clara become the Doctor reflects back how manipulative, scary, and power-hungry he can be. By the end, Clara's too resilient for her own good, and in a way that hurts others. Like the Doctor, she believes she can make hard choices, but they end up being in her own self-interest a lot of the time. I appreciate how Cass calls her out for basically sending her crew to the death in Before the Flood, as we've never seen a guest character so aptly take down a companion for their vain but well-intentioned choices. Another thing we see in this two-parter is Clara's odd appreciation for the coldness of 12. Because he's blunt and socially awkward, Clara spends a lot of her time keeping the peace and excusing his behavior.
This is Clara, not my assistant. She's some other word.
I'm Miss Cara.
Yeah, my carer. She can, so I don't have to.
And I don't think it's only for his good. It's her form of social capital, a way to control the controller, and lead in the situation as a proxy doctor.
I'm the Doctor.
And what's 12's part in this? We see it laid out bare in Kill the Moon. He genuinely believes the way to help her is to leave her alone when she's at her most vulnerable. He forces her to lie, and while he encourages her to do more in life than adventure with him, he crosses work-life boundaries constantly and derides the man she loves to his face. And he still has the audacity to ask for the validation of his morality from her. It's no wonder Season 8 turned her into the crude version of the Doctor she believes she is.
You were an exceptional doctor, Clara.
Thank you.
Goodness had nothing to do with it.
While she explicitly fails in being clever and Face the Raven, she actually kinda succeeds in Dark Water, manipulating the Doctor, stealing his keys, and genuinely threatening both of their safety and lives after Danny's death. It's a plan I don't think any other companion, besides maybe River, could come up with, and no one else could complete, especially in such a vulnerable state. That ability to channel her anger, sadness, and fear into action is powerful, and we see her use it in both ways. And in Face the Raven, we see her channel all that emotion into connecting with the Doctor one last time, caring for him and being honest as she does the strongest, most resilient thing she can do, and accept her death in that moment. Clara always felt like she was running from something, using her wit or charisma or perseverance to get one more minute to escape, and I found it so radical but so real that her own death would be the thing to finally ground her and return her to herself. That's why I found the events of Hell-Bent so disheartening. Almost the opposite of Amy and Rory's death, Clara's death was the only thing that made sense for her arc at this point, despite it being so sad. But like always, Moffat has to come in and shit on any good writing he's done. And Clara's returned to her plot point cardboard cutout self. And for what? She hasn't even made another appearance since Capaldi's send-off. And everyone seems to hate a shielder, so she doesn't really have that going for her either. Clara's arc on both the show and outside of it is such a fascinating lesson of perseverance. One of my most hated companions becoming one of my favorites. A plot point to a fully formed character and back again. What really interests me are how these three women mirror each other in some unexpected ways. Not only are they all career women who stick to it, all technically doctors in their own way, and oddly enough, none of them are universally liked. In fact, they're some of the most divisive companions in NuWho's run, and Martha is regularly cited as one of the most underrated companions because of the hate she continues to get. I wonder how much of these elements of resilience play into their negative criticism, and what that means about the average Who viewer. Do people prefer companions who are guided towards success by the Doctor? And does that mean they dislike companions who already know their worth? Or is it the other way around? That the writers can only write likable female characters when their charisma takes up space, but never in a way that threatens the Doctor. On top of their self-worth, I and other YouTubers like Davis have noticed how characters who question or threaten the Doctor's intellectual ability or moral prowess are also consistently disliked by fans. Why are we as a fandom so hard-pressed to actually look at the Doctor in a morally gray context, despite the fact that the show wants us to? And why are we afraid of companions that explore that for us? Still, I really could have chosen any companion to talk about this. I think there's ways to discuss every companion's resilience because they're all strong and give the Doctor a run for his money. Everyone has their own semi to super tragic backstories, but that's not a need for resilience and can actually be a hindrance. While working through tougher, more tragic things in your life can help you appreciate the good and teach you new skills and ways of dealing with things, it kind of goes without saying that it still puts you at a disadvantage from your peers. And each companion's batch of loss and abundance in different areas in their lives left them with different needs to fill. I just found those areas most interesting in Martha, River, and Clara's stories. But where we see an insidious connection between each companion was my initial jumping off point. This theme of companions being made in the Doctor's image, but that image being violent, cold, and cruel. Resilience for him is pretending to be the bigger man, while the women in his life take the brunt of it, both in responsibility and in trauma. And that's the image of the Doctor so many species in his universe see.
Why would a Time Lord be a weapon?
Well, they've seen you.
Me?
I've taken lives, and I got worse. I got clever. Manipulated people into taking their own.
The Doctor leaves behind him a trail of dead and traumatized women who probably went out and killed and traumatized others in his name.
Doctor, the word for healer and wise man throughout the universe. We get that word from you, you know. But if you carry on the way you are, what might that word come to mean?
You didn't save Tasker, did you? And he believed you, trusted you, and now he's dead.
If the Doctor had never visited us, if it never chosen this place on a whim, would anyone here have died?
When you've flown away in your little blue box, I'll explain that to their families.
All these people who were risen up by the Doctor and taking their lives into their own hands. But what does that mean when growing is becoming unrecognizable to their old selves because of it? Maybe the Doctor isn't making women resilient at all. Maybe he's making them dependent. One of the saddest examples of this to me are appearances of classic companions on NuWho and the Doctor's appearances on the Sara Jane adventures. Almost every conversation 10 or 11 has with Sara Jane or Jo basically goes, "Oh my god, you forgot me. I waited my whole life for you, but now I'm old and shit, and you don't care about me." And then the Doctor's like, "Nah, here's some random detail from your life, and a compliment." And they're like, "It really is you. You're the best." Like, who is writing this?
Doctor, oh my god, it's you, isn't it? Really is you, isn't it? You look incredible.
So do you.
I got old.
So you've got a married couple in the TARDIS?
Mr. and Mrs. Pom.
I only left you because I got married. I waited because you said you'd see me again. You did. I asked you, and you said yes. You promised you wouldn't just leave. Not forever. Not me.
I thought you died. I waited for you, you didn't come back, and I thought you must have died.
You've done everything from flying kites on Kilimanjaro to sailing down the Yangtze in a tea chest. Not even TARDIS could pin you down.
I did sail down the Yangtze in a tea chest. How did you know?
I feel so sad whenever I see those scenes, and it's obvious how shit of a guy he can be, and what a disservice these women have been done over and over. The rest of their lives are made small because of their adventures centered around what initially only this man could give them. Now, this isn't to say Sara Jane and Jo haven't lived rich, full lives outside of the Doctor, outside of the alien world even, but whenever the Doctor's around, it's just about him. There's even a moment in Sara Jane Adventures where Sara Jane's trauma gets thrown to the side like I talked about with new companions. Oops, your fiance just fucking died, but whatever, cause Ted's gonna leave. Who gives a shit about you anymore? And this removal of autonomy goes farther than the subconscious, especially in the Moffat years. Amy and Rory were set for a perfect send-off, making their own decision to leave the TARDIS for their own health and safety. But Moffat just decides to rob them of that in exchange for another sacrifice. And Clara's the opposite, already a perfect send-off, ruined by the emotional hubris of the Doctor himself. All of their final efforts were totally measures of positive resilience until the Doctor or plot bullshit got in the way. Something that actually makes me really grateful of how beautiful an initial send-off Martha had. But going back to Rory for a second, he's the man that had the most similar arc to the female companions I've spoken about, and his resilience turned cold. When he first joins the TARDIS, he's sensitive and submissive to a fault, but after proving himself to the Doctor and Amy over and over with violence and determination, he's been changed for good, but not always for the better. He also, like Clara and Martha, is able to say no to the Doctor and call him out.
John, it's not little, it's important to me. Look, what you do isn't all there is.
This isn't fair. You're turning me into you.
You know what's dangerous about you? It's not that you make people take risks, it's that you make them want to impress you. You make it so they don't want to let you down. You have no idea how dangerous you make people to themselves when you're around.
Even for the smallest of side characters, the woman in A Good Man Who Goes to War, who built her life around seeing the Doctor, joining an army just to see him in her dying moments. Is it worth it? What does the Doctor's influence mean if this is how it functions? And at the same time, it's real. Resilience is hard to find, and harder still when dealing with the pressures of being a woman, because in real life, how many badass women aren't spending their lives cleaning up the messes made by men, whether literally or more abstractly, societally, and learning to become resilient in spite of that. As bluntly as I can say it, despite the fact that it sucks, it works, because it's accurate. Still, I can feel like this is a really bleak take, and maybe it's wrong of me to even think there are ways I can discount the resilience these women portray based on their relationship to a man. If I center them in their stories and not the Doctor, does my understanding of their resilience change? This point specifically was really well looked into in Harpo Holmes' video essay, Does Doctor Who Hate Mothers?, where he too argues at first Doctor Who's initial negative portrayal of mother figures makes it seem like the show hates them, until he turns it around and we see how they learned and got better, or didn't, and how real either option is. I think there's certainly steps to be made in terms of improving Doctor Who's female characters, but the fact that women can be just as weak, sensitive, judgmental, frightened, angry, and unfixable as the men on the show isn't a bad thing. And lastly, I want to touch on a way the Doctor and Doctor Who provides resilience not only to its characters, but its audience as well. Finding faith.
Letting it get to you. You know what that's called? Being alive. Best thing there is. Being alive right now is all that counts.
Both the Doctor as a character and the show as a whole are a positive point of resilience for so many people. For Clara,
I know you're afraid, but being afraid is all right. Because didn't anybody ever tell you? Fear is a superpower. Because if you're very wise and very strong, fear doesn't have to make you cruel or cowardly. Fear can make you kind. Fear makes companions of us all.
That it will be all right. That the Doctor will save us.
And when you say it, do you believe it?
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
River.
It's not the sun. It's you. The sky's full of a million voices. Saying, yes, of course. We'll help. You've touched so many lives, saved so many people. Did you think when your time came, you'd really have to do more than just ask? You've decided that the universe is better off without you, but the universe doesn't agree.
River. No one can help me. A fixed point has been altered. Time is disintegrating.
I can't let you die.
I have to die.
Shut up! I can't let you die. without knowing you are loved by so many and so much, and by no one more than me.
And despite everything, Martha.
People are dying out there. They need him and I need him. He is everything. He's just everything to me, and he doesn't even look at me, but I don't care. Because I love him to bits. He has saved your lives so many times and you never even knew he was there. He never stops. He never stays. He never asks to be thanked. But I've seen him. I know him. I love him.
You haven't seen the things that he can do. Honestly, just trust me. Both of you. You've got your faith, you've got your songs and your hymns, and I've got the doctor.
How Martha smiles and is like,
The doctor's still alive.
We could even look at A Good Man Goes to War differently here. How positive is it then that she had a figure to guide herself towards all her life, to make her feel strong and wish to keep going and be more to the world, who she finally got to meet again in her last moments. On Doctor Who, women are always given the capacity to be resilient. Companions, villains, guest appearances, and the best depictions of female characters have their own brand of resilience, skills that they've built up over time before and with the Doctor. Ways they've found support even if they didn't have it at first, their own successes, and the struggles they've overcome and helped others overcome. And although it seems like the Chibnall era is bad for a lot of reasons, a female Doctor on its own is certainly not one of them. The female Master was great, and I'm excited to see how this understanding of resilience and autonomy changes with her at the foothold. Women have been an integral part of Doctor Who since its inception, both in front of and behind the camera. Verity Lambert, Delia Derbyshire, Julie Gardner, Patty Russell, Shirley Coward. So it's no surprise there's real nuance in their stories, depicting all kinds of women living all kinds of lives. Because despite the general continuity of being young, attractive, and can keep up with the Doctor, so many personalities, cultures, livelihoods, family lives, etc. have walked through the TARDIS doors. The show loves motherhood, values autonomy and the growth of its female characters, and gives well-meaning and nuanced representation to a diverse range of people. But we need more women behind the camera, writing these women and directing them. I have to wonder if the first female Doctor failed because there was no female showrunner, and what more women in the writer's room would have done for her, Yaz, and the characters of her era as a whole. Resilience is complex, and there's nothing more complex than Doctor Who. Thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. What companion best showcases resilience for you? Does the show provide you with resilience and hope like it does for me? And feel free to correct me if I'm wrong on anything lore-wise, because it gets quite complex, as I said. This is my longest scripted video essay by far, and it forced me to watch literally all of NuWho, except for the Jodie years, because I'm not ready for it yet, and watch the first classic episodes I've ever seen, so thanks for giving me that excuse. By the way, I have a new Doctor Who video essay in the works, so like and subscribe to stay tuned for that, and I'll see you next time.